Welcome to the Finance Savvy CEO series. I'm your host, Marguerite Presley Davis, former Wall Street financial analyst turned financial strategist for small business owners and entrepreneurs, a financial expert, angel investor, speaker, author, and creator of Your Profit Playbook. This is a series where I take you by the hand to calm the confusion and overwhelm over finances, to give you step-by-step strategies to help you master the financial side to running a business and ultimately transform you into a finance-savvy CEO. Okay, you guys, I told you we were going to talk about something super awkward today, hygiene, and we are. So when we think of hygiene, and I'm going to make the connection here for you in just a second of why this matters to finances, so bear with me. So when you were young, you likely learned all about dental hygiene. You're supposed to brush your teeth at least twice a day. You're supposed to have regular checkups to the dentist. You're supposed to floss, the whole nine. But here's the thing, that exact same concept relates to business finance hygiene as well. There's certain things that you need to be doing on a daily, monthly, regular basis to make sure that you are maintaining that good business financial hygiene. And good business financial hygiene is the key to running a successful business that is profitable. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So good business financial hygiene is not just something that is nice to have, it is a must-have. When you think about hygiene in every sense of the word, it's about things that you do on a daily or on a routine basis to make sure that you are staying healthy. It's the same thing with business financial hygiene. These are the things that you need to do on a regular basis to make sure that you are keeping your business in the best financial health possible. So what I'm going to do on today's podcast episode is share with you 7 of the most essential things that you should be doing to practice good business financial hygiene, because we want you to have that healthy financial future. So number 1 of the most important things that you need to do to maintain good business financial hygiene, and it happens to be my pet peeve, number 1 is do not mix business and personal expenses. So here's what I mean by that. Typically what you want to do from the very first inception of your business, and I shouldn't say typically, I really should say always, is you want to have a business account and you want to have a personal account. Now, when we don't have a business account and a personal account, what happens is we're running things for our business expense-wise out of our personal account. We're maybe even doing payroll out of our personal account, and it makes it nearly impossible to see what transactions are business transactions, what transactions are personal transactions. And ultimately, it becomes a nightmare for you at the end of the week, at the end of the month, to have to reconcile these items between your business accounts and your personal accounts so that you can keep things straight. So the first basic level of good business financial hygiene is definitely to make sure that you are separating out your business expenses from your personal expenses. All right, now number 2, have financial goals in place that you're working towards, okay? So think of it this way. Whenever you start something, I'll say at the beginning of the year, everyone is so gung-ho about setting goals, right? We have these New Year's resolutions. People get so nervous about making them because they don't make goals. They don't like making goals that they cannot keep. Guys, this is not the case for financial goals. You always need to have certain financial goals that you have set in your business that you are working towards, okay? Because if we don't have goals that we're working towards, we don't know when we're going to hit them. We don't know if we're off from hitting them. We don't know where we land. So we want to give ourselves goals so that we give ourselves a target to work towards. You need to be able to know when it's time where you absolutely have to hustle, or when you may be able to slow down and dial back a bit. But the key here, number 2, to the absolute essential to having good business financial hygiene is having that financial goal in place. All right, number 3 to good financial hygiene is definitely making sure that you're reviewing your financial dashboard weekly. Now, let's take a step back on this one and let's talk about what a financial dashboard is. What a financial dashboard does is it lays out the most important financial metrics in your business. Now, what's most important in your business is going to depend on what your friends, maybe in their business, what their most important financial metrics are, right? And I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean when I say financial metrics. So these are things like, what is your net profit? What are your profit margins? How are you performing from a revenue, a sales perspective? Those are examples of financial metrics. Now, picture these metrics being on a dashboard. And all the dashboard does is it's highlighting these key metrics for you so that you can check in regularly and know how they're going. There's a famous example that I always like to use here of you driving in your car. Okay, so picture this, you're in your car, you're driving, and you've been driving for a while, and you notice that your gas meter isn't changing. Either one, you celebrate because you're like, woohoo, not spending a lot of money on gas, my gas needle isn't moving. But what's typically, there's something wrong with that gas needle, right? Like it should be moving. If you're going on a long trip, you're using the gas, right? But what happens is your gas meter, it tells you how you're progressing along, right? Think of that very same thing as a dashboard. It's helping to tell you how you're actually progressing along towards those goals, right? So how a gas meter is essential for a car, this dashboard is absolutely essential for you as a business owner and is just good financial hygiene. All right. Number 4, good business financial hygiene is absolutely making sure that you are properly accounting for every single transaction that happens in your business. So here's what I mean by that. And as you guys can tell, I like examples a lot. So here's what I mean by making sure that you have these financial transactions that are being accounted for. Picture this. Picture you walk into Barnes & Noble. Right? You're thinking of picking up a new cooking book. Well, it's pretty easy. You go into Barnes & Noble, you find the section that has all the cooking books. They're all right there. Now, say you go on a different day and you want to learn a little bit more about knitting, right? Knitting, you go to Barnes & Noble, you find a section, and you can find all the knitting books. Every single knitting book is properly in place. Every single cookbook was properly in place. What they're doing at Barnes & Noble is they're accounting for all of the books that they have, right? Their cooking books, their knitting books, there may be self-help books, the whole 9. And what they're doing is they have a particular shelf that every book in Barnes & Noble should be on. That's the same thing, what I mean here, when I say make sure that you're accounting for every financial transaction that takes place. Make sure you know what that transaction is. Make sure you know where it's going. Make sure it's on the proper shelf. Typically what I see in this area from business owners is when they're not taking proper good financial hygiene, is they're not actually quite sure what transactions happen. Maybe they're not taking a good inventory of their mileage, right? Every time you as a business owner, you get in your car and you're going on a business trip, you need to be tracking that mileage. Not doing so would be an example of bad financial hygiene. And we don't want bad financial hygiene. So just make sure that you're tracking and keeping account of every single business transaction that's taking place. All right, so let's keep moving here into business hygiene. Finance tip number 5 is build a cash reserve. So the reality, you guys, is things are going to happen in our business. Things will not always go as planned, right? Things will happen from maybe it's a key piece of equipment that you have that stops working. Perhaps it is, perhaps it's a key employee that you want to keep and maybe you need to increase the rate that you're paying them. And so when those things happen, it actually creates anxiety. But Here's the thing that will prevent that anxiety or that overwhelm from happening is having a cash reserve. What a cash reserve does is it allows you to build up cash over time, where in the case of emergencies, things happen, you have a cash reserve to go to. Without that cash reserve, you're going to find yourself in that state of panic, in that state of overwhelm, and not being able to potentially handle a really big obligation or to carry out something that's really important in your business. So guys, make sure you have a cash reserve. And I'm going to give you a really quick recommendation here. Out of every transaction that you get paid or any incoming revenue, have a percentage set aside from that transaction that goes directly into your cash reserve. Have it second nature, where it's nothing that you're even thinking about. It's just automatic. It happens right away. Okay? So let's move on to tip number 6. Tip number 6 is to limit the amount of fixed costs that you have. Now, I'm going to tell you about what are fixed costs. What do I mean by that? So a lot of times in our businesses, there's two different types that we have, two different costs, that we have in our business. We have costs that are variable, meaning they can change depending on, they're tied to our sales, and depending on if they're low or high, we can change what those expenses are. But now there are other expenses that we have in our business, which are fixed expenses that you have every single month, unrelated to the amount of production or output sales that are happening in your business. Now, if we want to think about this conceptually, right? The reason that it's good financial hygiene to keep those fixed costs low is because let's talk about worst case scenarios. Say sales are really incredibly low for a month, right? If those sales are low, and you still are obligated to pay those fixed costs, you're going to find yourself in a cash pinch. So it's good hygiene to try to minimize as much as possible those fixed costs that you have from month to month, right? You don't want to get yourself into a lot of obligations that are requiring you to pay out, even if you may not be getting the sales or the revenue in on a monthly basis. All right, business finance hygiene tip number 7. This is the last one, but an incredibly important one. Meet with your CFO regularly, you guys. Just how you go and you have checkups on your car, you have checkups on your teeth, the whole nine. Meeting with your CFO regularly is such an incredibly important hygiene tip. You want to meet with your CFO. You want to meet with them and go over your financials. Talk about what's happening from a revenue perspective. Talk about what's happening from a cost perspective, what's happening from a profitability perspective. But ultimately, meet with them so that you can strategize on what are those next moves in your business, right? You want to strategize on what's not going so well, what's going awesome, how you can do more of those things that are doing awesome, how you can potentially tweak or where you have wiggle room to start investing in certain things that you want to do in your business. Do not skip this one. If you haven't heard anything that I've said on this episode today, make sure that having the financial goals that you have in place, absolute must, have those in place, and then meet with that CFO regularly. Essential, you guys. So again, I'm the type of person that if I was having hygiene issues, I would want somebody to tell me about them. So I know it's an awkward topic to talk about money and your hygiene all in one episode, but these are essential, you guys. These are essential for you to be able to have that financial success in your business that you're reaching for, to have those profit goals that you're absolutely being able to attain and know how you're going to obtain them. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week.